Okay, welcome everybody. I'm so excited for you all to be here. This is always a little weird on Zoom, and it's always odd that I can't see all of your faces and if you're seeing me, hearing me, reacting, that sort of thing. But this is our post-COVID life, so this is where we go. But we can all do this from our houses, and so I'm just going to look at the bright side of it here. So thank you so much for joining us. Tonight's workshop is all about menopause and how to make this transition healthy and to understand a little bit more about what's going on in our bodies, because we all know that we did not get a brochure like our kids get a checkup where you go and you get, oh, the 10-year-old checkup, the 11-year-old checkup. Well, nobody gave me a menopause checkup. And I'm only 42, but I can tell you things are changing, and you know when your body's changing. And so I am with all of you, and I hear the struggles day in and day out of the clinic. So I am Dr. Cristin Zaimes. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I own Oceanside Physical Therapy. We are a clinic who serves women. We treat men as well, but for the most part, the women in my clinic are women that have been dropped from the medical system. And I see people in all ages of kind of the life transition. So when I see people in their young years, a lot of them are having problems with periods, pain with intercourse, leakage, a lot of challenges in the pelvic area. But the consistent theme there is that they are not listened to, not heard, sort of shamed, put aside. We all know this story. The next group that we typically see is moms, pregnancy, postpartum, and through those years. And oh, big surprise, dropped, not listened to. You're our culture really leads us to believe that we should just basically be just these warriors where we push everything down and keep moving. And then lo and behold, we get to our late 30s and 40s and beyond, and it's like, oh, why did we think this time somebody was going to have information for us? Because it's just as crappy in the later years as it was our whole lives. So my passion really stems from women really not being heard, served throughout all of these transitions in life. I just see it over and over again, and I see the systemic problems and why it's happening. And so my passion, my mission is to empower women and to give them the knowledge so that doesn't happen, and they can be armed with good information so they can have really great discussions and find the right providers. And this isn't going to, there's not a one pill for anything. I think our medical culture too has led us to believe that, there's a find it, fix it mentality. So that's how medicine has been presented. That's how doctors have been taught. There's an MRI, there's a CT scan, there's a blood test, and then there is the subsequent fix. Well, that's just not how it works. It's not how it's worked our whole lives. And so really, it's not us that is the problem, it's the system that's the problem. So we aim to fix the system, but also empower ourselves. So that is really where this workshop came out of, and it's just so many women talking over and over. And the patients might have bladder or prolapse, but the umbrella, the rain cloud really over it is that everybody's going through a transition. And so we can't just keep looking at this one symptom, one thing at a time, because it's a much bigger issue. So I kind of have this fairy tale in my head that soon, I don't know when, but women will live in a world where from very early on, so my daughter is 13, and so her and her friends, there's a lot of period talk, but right away they are empowered and they're given information. Here's what your cycles look like. This is what's happening in your body. Your body is brilliant. It's amazing. The female physiology is just is really, really, it's just brilliant. It's creative. There's nothing like it. And if that we were given that information of like, look how amazing and awesome our bodies are, and I understand what's happening in my body, and if something's not right and what not normal, then we know who to talk to, and we're really monitoring that for ourselves. And because that isn't my little fairy tale is clearly a fairy tale and doesn't exist, that right away, that's, like we whisper about periods, we like, oh, do you have, time of the month, that type of thing. It's shamed right away. It's quieted. We're taught not to talk about it. And that does us a huge disservice, because anything that we don't understand immediately is fearful and weird, which really makes us feel crappy about ourselves, and we don't know who to talk to. And those cycles go on, and that's repeated through motherhood, and it's now being repeated later on in life as well. So I think it's crappy, and I don't want it to happen anymore. That is really where this workshop stemmed from. So today we are going to talk about menopause. What the hell's happening in your body? But really, first, in order to understand menopause, we have to go back to the beginning. So let's all go back to being our 13, 12, 11 to 16-year-old selves. Let's just capture the whole range. And so what are hormones? What is our cycle? And once you know that, we can understand what happens during menopause. So let's go back to the beginning a little bit. So this next slide here really talks about our normal cycles. Okay, so let's go back. Let's talk about hormones first. So hormones, what are hormones? Hormones are chemical messengers in the body. They can be in the digestive system, the endocrine system, the brain, the kidney, the liver, the bones. Basically, just think of our whole body as this really intricate orchestra that communicates with each other to make one thing happen. And the entire goal of our bodies is pregnancy. It's how our physiology works. And so whether or not you want to have a baby or not, that what is healthy is that you are able to have a baby. Then you can choose, hey, I feel really good, I'm not going to have a baby, or great, I'm fertile, I'm going to have a family. So let's look at these 4 phases. Okay, so 4 phases. And if you think of women, we're monthly beings, we're cyclical. So what happens for us, think about week at a time. And so the first phase of the menstrual cycle actually starts with day 1 of menstruation. So think of bleeding. So that first day that you bleed, that is when your cycle technically starts. So that's when you first start counting. So we have that bleeding phase. And what happens there is that basically all of the sex hormones, so when we talk about sex hormones, we're talking about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Those are all very low. So you think about this as a very quiet time. Nothing much is happening. The concert's over. The event ended. It's a very restorative time, a restful time. This is anywhere between 3 and 7 days. It should not be that painful. It should not be that heavy. This is obviously where a lot of young women struggle. So then let's move on to that next phase. So you're done with sort of your period, but even within your period, those first couple of days, it's like the orchestra starts slow. It's like people are coming into the concert, but there's background music. What that means to me is that there are certain hormones that are already starting to communicate with each other. Because the next phase is the follicular phase, which means that each ovary, so we have 2 ovaries, each ovary has at puberty about 200 to 300,000 follicles. So these are just like these finger-like processes that will eventually hold an egg. And so we actually are born with millions of them, but by puberty we have about 200 to 300,000 of them. And then at each cycle, there's a recruitment of like the best follicles. It's like which ones are the best. And about 10 to 20 each cycle are recruited. And then it's for the one egg that's released. So in this follicular phase, this next phase, it's all about ramping up and prepping. So it's just all about basically beefing up and being sort of the best possible in order for ovulation to happen. Because ovulation is phase 3. Ovulation is the shortest phase. It's only about 2 days, but it is the star of the show. Everything is for ovulation. If you do not ovulate, you don't get pregnant. If you don't ovulate, you don't release progesterone. Progesterone is a very, very important hormone to release for heart health, bone health, happiness, and this is what we need to do for health as women. And so when I talk to women who come into the clinic, I ask about their cycles, but I also ask, do you ovulate? Most people, some people know, but honestly, it's not something that is, top of the head, like, oh yeah, definitely ovulate. I ovulate at this time and this is what I do. And it's the right side or the left side, or this is when I feel it. I mean, it could be like that. But oftentimes it's not. So, and when you're on birth control, this whole process is suppressed. And so there is a synthetic hormone that's supposed to mimic progesterone, but it is not progesterone. And oftentimes, if you've been on birth control for a long time, that this is the chemical that actually is not linked to happiness, but depression. And it is not good for bone health. And so if you've been on birth control for a long time, hey, 10 years, oh yeah, just get on it. It's all healthy for you. Well, not so much. It's not great for your bone health later in life. And all of those years without the release of real progesterone is really not so hot. So again, if you have a young girl, or you are a young girl and you're talking about birth control, you should know these things, because that should be part of your decision making. And birth controls, obviously it has a lot of uses, but we should be aware of the detrimental effects it has on our health. And so that is one of them. So ovulation, star of the show. Sort of think of it, the orchestra's in the background and the like celebrity comes out and they're waving like, yay, ovulation, egg is released, we did it. And so now is the luteal phase, and this is all about basically becoming pregnant. So down the fallopian tubes, and prepping the uterus, cervical fluid changes, and it's all really about like keeping things prepped to become pregnant. That doesn't happen, then the uterine lining sheds, and you have another period, and now you've come full circle. So you can see in this first graph the 4 phases of your cycle: menstruation, then you have this follicular phase, ovulation, and this peak. And then only after this peak of ovulation that you have right here is then you see this line progesterone, then progesterone skyrockets here. You have another little boost of estrogen, which really oftentimes pumps up your sex drive a little bit later. Again, everything to get pregnant, and then everything dips back down again. So those are the 4 phases of your cycle. A healthy cycle that throughout your life, you should be like, yes, I know what my cycle is. It's 28 days, it's 30 days, it's 32 days. Oftentimes when it's too short or too long, or there's heavy bleeding, or you're not ovulating, this is all when there are period problems. And so many girls struggle, and women struggle with this. These 2 slides are, are from the book, The Period Fix by Nicole Jardim. She's a really great resource for period problems, understanding your period. She's great on social media. I'm actually interviewing her October 8th. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to talk all about living in harmony with your cycle, birth control, and some of the problems that happen. So so check that out. But those are the 4 phases of your cycle. Hopefully that doesn't sound too crazy. I'm sure most of you haven't heard about many of those because it's just not information that's given to us. Now, let's go to menopause. What happens during menopause? So, well, this happens during menopause. Menopause is erratic. And if you can think about what's happening in your body, the problem is a lot's happening in your body. It's a friggin' roller coaster, which is why I have this happy face and sad face, because you never know, what like hill and valley you're going to be on that day. And what I love about this slide is that it gives you a good look over your lifespan. So you can see in childhood here, and this particular graph is only estradiol, which is a form of estrogen, and progesterone. And you can see in early childhood years, they're both flat. And then early on, estradiol starts to increase. And this is right around 8 or 9 when your kids start to get a little moody. Yep, because that's what's happening. It's already happening, but they're not going to actually have a period until this spike in progesterone, which simulates that they've ovulated. So then you can see these ups and downs, up and down, up and down, which is all ovulation. So this graph obviously has what, 8 cycles or something like that, but you know, it's going to be many more. So if you were nice, had a nice cycle, it'd be up and down, up and down, up and down. And this like orchestra would quiet down and play and ovulation, and quiet down and play and ovulation and progesterone. And it would just be this beautiful symphony that just works. And it's really a vital sign of our health that it works well, because this system is connected to our brain health, our heart health, our gut health. It's really who we are as biologically female, and it's just how we are healthy. So let's reach perimenopause. Now, perimenopause, it's just erratic. So you potentially skip cycles, similarly to when you went to puberty and the onset. And if you can look at this estrogen here, you know, it goes crazy. It can skyrocket and it can plummet. You might be ovulating, so there might be progesterone and there might not be. And so, but overall, the estrogen slowly starts to decline. And this slide is by Laura Brydon, who is another phenomenal resource. She's actually coming out with a whole book on perimenopause very soon. I can't wait to read that one. But she has a lot of great books as well, social media, great resource. But so I'm going to go to this next slide that is a little bit simpler about estrogen, the sex hormones rather. So if you can see that around 25, estrogen and then progesterone and testosterone, but testosterone sort of slowly declines. And when you're 60, it actually ends up that you have more testosterone than the female sex hormones, which I'm gonna guess is why, you know, over you know, as you get older, it's sort of what I call is like the screw it hormone. I mean, how many older people just say what they think? And you know, I feel like this is how guys have been living most of their life. It changes. So and then you can see the estrogen where it just in your 40s the progesterone plummets, and then estrogen's just like spiky, 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 but then low. So menopause technically is 12 months of no ovulation and periods. And so you can mark that officially after a year of not having any periods. When you go into the doctor, if you said, I don't know where I'm at, there are lab tests they can run. They can look at 2 specific hormones to say sort of where you are. There's not a lot of value in that unless I mean, I think I see it a little bit more like in your 40s if you're wondering if you still are able to have children. But really what menopause is all about is managing your symptoms and understanding your symptoms much better. So what happens with this decline of estrogen is symptoms. So I'm going to make you all feel really good right now. So this is why you're probably all here. And I sent out that questionnaire, which has a lot of this on there. Because what you really want to think about is what is happening in my body and how can I treat it? So it's not as much about, you know, the specifics of which hormone is doing what at a certain time, because hormone testing is so anyway, and especially for menopause, because in menopause it's erratic. So 1 week might be different than the next. And so when you get values, and if you tested your hormones, let's say, and let's have all your values, well, it's going to potentially be drastically different the next day, the next week. And so you really have to go based on your major symptoms that are bothering you. And we can really look back based on your symptoms and have a better idea of how to treat and if which hormones supporting you might improve things. So I have here brain and nervous system, sleep, memory, I'm foggy, mood changes, energy, anxiety, depression. It's really all over the map. And these can be really intense. And they can be really mild. I've seen people come in, they're like, I just breeze through menopause. And then some people are just really struggling, like can't go to work, losing their jobs, divorcing, really a lot of problems. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what to do with that. So then, I'm sort of working my way down. You have your brain here, and then we're working down to our body. I think the number one annoying symptom that I hear over and over again is weight gain. It's like I'm doing nothing different, and things are changing, and that's the key right there, is that you have to do something different. Your body is changing, so what you're doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, doesn't cut it anymore. And I think that's when you start to really notice changes and things that are not ideal for you, and you start to want to do something about it. So in your body, strength, and we're going to go over some of these a little bit more specifically. The hot flashes, the night sweats, you can have more pain, you can have bad breath, even the gingivitis and inflammation is a common symptom. Eye changes, I don't think I put many of that on here too, but your vision can change drastically, even the sensitivity to light. It's really awesome. I mean, basically what this says is like, wow, this is fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this time in my life when my entire body goes wrong, apparently, right? And yeah, I mean, it doesn't look so hot when you look at it like this. Now, the flip side to all this is, I would really say that this is really the kind of screw it time of your life. This time should be a time in your life when you finally start to take care of yourself. Because you know what, you see things happening, and it can be hard, obviously, if we're still taking care of kids or parents. But I tell you, if you don't start focusing on yourself now, it's like menopause can be a while. The average woman lives till about 84. So let's just take 40. Things really start to change. That's it's a good half of our life that we really have to take care of ourselves, because I don't want to deal with all this stuff my whole life. So I think there's like a lot, like if I could just categorize, we have these brain changes, we have body changes, and then, my specialty is sort of those down there changes, where this is where I see a lot of women, but all the other stuff is happening as well that influence the vaginal area. So we get dryness, we have pain with sex, libido issues, pelvic organ prolapse, leakage, gas, bladder, bowel issues, orgasm starts to be like, so I'm going to go over each one of these things, and not over, I can go in such detail and we can nerd out about why and which hormone's doing what and why this is happening. And I have found over and over, I mean, that's cool, but you want to know what you should do about it, and not really like why it's happening as much. Let's sort of leave it to us to figure out the why. So what I'm going to go over first is your body. Okay. So in the perimenopause, postmenopause, there are body changes. Now, what can you do for your body? Well, you can move more. Most women in menopause studies that have been done, their activity levels drastically decrease. And so, like I said before, your body is changing. So you need to now do more to maintain homeostasis. I would say nutrition is a big thing. And really, there's a ton of diets out there. If you Googled menopause and nutrition, you're going to get super overwhelmed really fast. There's keto, there's paleo, there's the whole 30. There are a lot of diets out there. And here's what I would say, just eat better. Just start by eating better. Honestly, most women need like more vegetables and less coffee and wine diet. And it's really just like, if you drink coffee all morning, and you really go for that second cup later and you're not drinking that much water, that's not great. And then you make worse food choices. So a lot of these changes that will feel so much better, they're not huge changes. You don't need this major diet. It's really all about managing inflammation in our body. And nutrition is a great way to do that. And, you know, depending on what's going on, and of course there can be more issues in your gut that you could seek professional help for and really understand on a more detailed level. But start reasonable. Don't overwhelm yourself. Start literally just eat more vegetables. Cut back on the wine and cut back on the coffee. You know, we become a lot more sensitive to these things. Caffeine, I'm going to screw up the stat, but it's something like we metabolize caffeine like 3 times less than we did when, you know, before changes started to happen. So if you feel like, oh God, I can only have 1 glass of wine, or gosh, like coffee really bothers my stomach now. Yeah, things are changing. So take notice in all the changes that are happening in your body. If you find that, you know, you're feeling something, acknowledge it, because it's real, it's happening. You know, don't let it go to the wayside again and ignore it like we've been doing our whole lives. So sugar is another thing. The sweets. I know I stock my office with bark thins because I just love a piece of chocolate after. But try to have, you know, dark chocolate and try to make it a little piece to satisfy that craving instead of having really a lot of sweets. You know, there's just little changes that you can make that shouldn't be overwhelming and shouldn't make us feel like, God, now we have all this crap happening to us and now we can't do anything. The other thing that's great for our body is strength training. Women lose every 5 years after menopause, you lose about 30% of your strength. 30% of your strength. So just by doing the same thing, you're going to be a lot weaker every 5 years. So one of the main things I do for women is make sure that their program has strength training in it. Walking is great. And, you know, if you're talking about like osteoporosis prevention and training, that you really need weight-bearing activity. And that's true. So I suggest like if people are walking, to use poles. And I put that link in the workshop, that resource list that I gave you, that I first sent out. Urban Polling is a great company. So even if you just walked with poles, and not that you need them for balance, it's just that weight into your body is very helpful. And strength training, and it doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to go to the gym for 2 hours, but you need to get strong. You need to lift weights and do things that are hard, and you get to fatigue. So I've talked to a lot of friends that, you know, they do workout programs, and I always say to them, I'm like, do you get stronger? You know, is there like a really good plan every 6 or 8 weeks or so to change things up so you constantly get stronger? And if you're thinking like, I don't know, I work out and I feel healthy and that's fantastic, but if you don't know if you're getting stronger, you're probably not. And so some sort of weight training is really, really essential for your bones, your heart, your brain, all of it. And for strength, because we know just by sitting there, we're getting weaker. And I'd say, like, do stuff with your friends, laugh, like that is so important. And I'll go into that more with brain, but you just have to do things that you like to do, and stay active. We have to go out there in nature. You know, you just have to do things you do. And if you hate the gym, don't go to the gym. Find something that you like to do. There's so many things that you can find that you like to do that we can help you do better and get stronger at. Life's too short to do stuff that you don't like to do. So those are my tips for your body. All right, let's go on to brain, and then we'll move to vagina. The one thing I did forget to mention in the beginning too is that at the end, I'm so excited about all the info. that I have a prize. I'm gonna have a raffle, and I'm gonna give away a $75 gift certificate to Float. They have an office in Hampton and Portsmouth, and I love them. There's so many things you can do there, massage and the float tanks, and I remembered because I'm on Brain, which I go there for my brain health because I love those float tanks, and they really calm my nervous system down. But there's naturopaths there and acupuncturists. So there's an array of, I like them as my brain place. So let's talk about the brain. The brain, it's just not firing on all cylinders. So we need to work harder to make those connections stay and even make more connections. So I would say, like I was saying before, find joy. Nothing's better for brain health. This picture here is of the top one of the sunset is me in Jamaica last year. I hadn't taken, that was, I did it, of course, I did it with sort of a business trip, but I really loved it, and it was with great people, but I did it by myself. I would have never done that a couple years ago. And so really just doing whatever the hell you want, or really just prioritizing you is really important at this stage of the game. And what that does to your brain is just amazing. So, so the brain really combines, the nervous system. Think of just stress. It's deep. It's not just chill out. It's not just meditate, although meditation is great. You can't just say relax. Look at, we have a pandemic happening. I've been talking about how the medical system isn't really supportive of us. There's a lot of reasons. There's so much sensory stimulation in this world today. Our brains are fried, and that's before menopause. So we have to do what we can for our brain health, and exercise is a big piece of brain health. You should never leave an exercise feeling tanked. Like if you leave feeling exhausted, like you need a nap, that was not the right exercise for you, and you need to find something else. One interesting thing is on this bottom graph is it's heart rate variability, and it's one way I track my own nervous system, and I'm starting to use it coaching people because it's a really great way to track your nervous system. So really briefly, heart rate variability is like the variance. So like if your beats go bum, 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 they don't actually evenly, like it's not like a metronome evenly. There's a little bit of variation. And if you have a lot of variation between your heartbeats, that's a sign of your nervous system being very resilient. And if you don't have a lot of variation, that is a sign that your stressed nervous system is really dominating and it's taking over. And so this graph, this is actually from my Apple Watch. And I was kind of going along. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday hit, and Monday it tanked. What was interesting is I did a workout Sunday, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. I felt exhausted halfway through the workout. Like I couldn't do what I normally was doing. I was thinking, just why am I so exhausted? I went downstairs. I couldn't even go out to dinner where we were supposed to go meet with friends. And I ended up getting a low grade temp that night. Funny, I got my period 2 days later. So of course, part of me thinks, I have corona, I need to get a test, blah, blah, blah. But, which I don't. But it was a really interesting measure of my immune system and my nervous system, so it is accurate to what's going on. And so you can use these types of measurements to see if a workout was good for you, if your body liked an activity. When you eat crappy, you look at it the next day, and you can see that data reflect how hard your nervous system's working. So that's a really great way for me to work with people and try to figure out what is best for them. So there's so many things you can do: mindfulness, meditation, journaling. We do dry needling, and the way I dry needle people is really for calming down the nervous system. Acupuncture can do something similar, but we just have a little bit different sort of ethos in the way we learn everything. Like I said, the float tanks, understanding your emotions and healing some of your trauma and the emotional past, that's a big one. If there is grace in that, your nervous system just quiets. Everything that we repress and store, it's there, it's not gone. So I think that any form of therapy and figuring out how to, really find your purpose and just find that joy in life is really going to be important. Okay, so now the good stuff, the vagina. This is my wheelhouse. So vaginal dryness, atrophy, which sort of means your muscles just shrivel up basically, and tissues. The vaginal tissues are interesting because what happens is that the sensitivity of that area gets less. So basically, if touch in that area was stimulating prior to perimenopause or menopause, it might be a little bit like now. And so stimulating that full clitoris, which actually is quite big and goes all the way back. It's not just the tip that oftentimes people think it is. Using toys. So I have toys on here because you know what, sex might need to change a little bit. Like what did it before might not do it again. Doesn't mean you're broken. It just means, you know what, it might be time for change it up a little bit, more foreplay. You to be a little bit more vocal about what actually is stimulating. And lubrication is really essential. So with dryness, I mean, it's friction. So there are plenty of lubrications. The stuff over the counter is going to be like 99% of it is crap. You want a lubricant without any of that junk in it. And we use one called Slippery Stuff. But there's several that are on the okay list to use. And there are other moisturizers that actually have some other moisturizing stuff in them, especially DHEA, which is one of the hormones that your vaginal tissues will lack and will kind of need. And for hormonal therapies, estrogen therapy is really helpful. So there are lots of topical estrogens now. Very tiny amounts go a long way because there are receptors in the vaginal tissue. So when people think of hormone therapies, they're like, oh no, it's going to give me breast cancer. Like we've come a long way from that. They used to just like dose up people with all sorts of hormones and then be surprised when someone got cancer. Well, now it's much smaller amounts in specific delivery modes. And so it's much different. And so a little estradiol cream in the vaginal area, it makes your vagina like younger, like a lot younger. So you can figure out your brain changes and your body changes, but at least there's a pretty quick fix if you can do estrogen therapy to make at least your vagina younger again. And what I often see people for is bladder and bowel changes even with leakage or constipation or pain. Obviously sometimes there's pain in the vaginal area with sex or nerve sensitivities. So we do a lot of treatment around that. What I would say is seek out help. And that brings me to my next slide, which is go pick your team. You should be thinking, what are my problems right now? What do I need help with? And go find that person. So a GYN who knows menopause is a really great resource. Sometimes family doctors and functional medicine doctors, let me say, I love a functional medicine doctor. I think functional medicine doctors, sometimes there are like MDs or DOs who are also functional medicine doctors. I like them a lot because they sort of have training in both worlds. They're hard to come by. But there are GYNs with menopause training and some family doctors with it. And that could be a good first resource. If you go to a doctor and you don't feel helped and you feel shunned, go to a different one. Just honestly switch because they're not helpful. And there's so many out there that are helpful. It's not you, it's them. So gynecologists, urogynecologists are surgeons who are specialists in urology and gynecology, and they're a great resource. They're who you want to go to if you have a prolapse. I work very closely with a couple of urogynecologists in the area. So they are a great resource. Therapists, sex therapists, dermatologists, collagen, I didn't even mention that. Our collagen declines like rapidly, which is why everything's so stretchy and fragile. And we're like, oh, that looks like my grandma's skin. Yeah, it's collagen. It's leaving fast. So often people ask about collagen supplements, and the real answer is it sounds cool, but I don't know. There's no studies that tell me who needs what of how much. And so I'm going to defer that one to ask a functional medicine doctor about that, and they'll probably have much better answers than me. Dentist, if you're not going to the dentist, go to the dentist. And I would up it, go twice a year if you're not, because inflammation and gingivitis, it's very common. And so we just need to do more to take care of your teeth. Floss, that would be something to add if that wasn't in your repertoire either. If you're going to go to a gym and you're going to say, I'm going to really do this program, make sure that you know what the hell they're talking about. There's so many people out there that just think like, no pain, no gain, and tougher is better. And that's just crap. I mean, you're just going to get hurt. And I don't want you to get hurt. So there's a lot of great people out there. Find your community. I can help you find your community, but there's a lot of noise out there too. So, and I would say your brain and self-care team. So what sounded good about this? Like, did the float tank sound great? Are you like, God, I really need to take that course, or I should start meditating. I need to get back to yoga. What is you? And everybody is so unique. And I would say that is what my message would be right now. And this is the healthy version. Yes, there's some medications out there, and there's some nutritional supplements and maybe certain diets, but overall it's just about being healthy. There are so many things you can change without spending hundreds of dollars and without pills. Don't go through this transition and think about it as the pill mentality. That's what we were raised to believe medicine was. And I would say ditch that. Just empower yourself. There's so much information. The more you know, the better you will be able to transition, and you'll say, you know what, I want to do this and I want to do that, and this works for me. And really it's almost like a thumbprint. I feel like it's so unique. And that's what I love doing. I love working with people and saying, who are you? Let me help you give the knowledge. So if what I do at the clinic is I'll do a pelvic assessment, I'll do an internal pelvic exam, and I'll help people understand what their muscles are doing, what the skin looks like, where their organs are at, and what their symptoms are. And so the more you understand that, and I'll say, this is what I think you should do, and this is what's going to help. And the same thing for strength training and your back and, the aches and pains that you've had. How do you not just ignore them and say, I can't, but live with them and grow and just become more resilient and stronger in our old age? And I have a picture of the notorious RBG, because in her honor of her passing, I mean, who, like, politics aside, like, don't you just want to be her? Like, I want to age like her. I mean, there's pictures of her like pumping weights. Like, she died in her 80s, and she just worked up till the day she died. I mean, it's just, she's an amazing woman. And I want my 40s to my 80s to be kick-ass, and somebody to put a crown on me and equate me to like some 90s rapper, because I'm that badass. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to see what everybody's saying. So thank you so much for listening to me. What I would love to do now is I would love to open it up for questions. But before that, because I know some people might have to go, I'm going to send you all a link to a survey. And if you fill out the survey, you'll be in and put your name on there and that sort of thing. I'll raffle off somebody to win the $75 gift certificate to Float. And I will send that to everybody tonight if I can figure that out. If not, tomorrow morning. and I would love your feedback. I really just want to understand what everybody needs. I know you know, at Oceanside we have Pilates programs for osteoporosis. We do, like I said, pelvic exams. We treat pain. We treat leakage. You know, we have a staff of 3 phenomenal physical therapists, and any one of them can help you navigate that. But there are other things too. There are strength programs. You know, we just have a ton to offer, and so I just sort of want to see, what does everybody need? What does everybody want? And so we can navigate menopause and go through this, and it to be not the wild roller coaster that nobody wanted to go on, but maybe just kind of a nice, fun little roller coaster with our hands up that we're like singing loud and having fun. So I would love to open it up if anybody has any questions. I see there's a couple in the chat. Okay, somebody just wanted a link to my slides, came in late. So first question is, so you can put questions in your chat, and let's see, I will take the unmute off so that you can unmute yourself if you have a question, but I'll answer this one first. Are services typically covered by insurance? That is a $1 million question these days. So yes. So we take several insurances. We take Medicare, Blue Cross, and a couple federal TRICARES. There's a couple other ones. We have a billing person who does a phenomenal job of helping you through that. Because honestly, insurance is an absolute cluster right now. Out of network, in network, deductibles, co-insurance. So I could say we're in network and you could get really low coverage, and I could say we're out of network and we could have an insurance that actually pays all of it. So it really depends. Our services, I can code them as physical therapy because we usually code them as whatever symptom you're struggling with, and that's what's covered. So sort of is the answer. Yes, no, maybe sometimes. It depends is the real answer, but we do our best to put it into the box so the robots get it. Okay, so estradiol cream, is that by prescription or over the counter? That one is prescription. So I would go to, like I said, a functional medicine doctor can prescribe it. Your GYN can prescribe it. There are what's over the counter are some of the lubrications and moisturizing creams that have DHEA in it. You can get some of those, and oftentimes that's great. And a lot of people that have had breast cancer use you'd have to talk with your oncologist, but there's actually I've had people that have been prescribed and okayed by their oncologist estradiol cream. And then the over-the-counter ones do have some DHEA in it, which is a hormone that could also help. Okay, so the resource list I referenced is on. It was supposed to be sent. You know, I'll send a link to everybody tomorrow. I'll send the survey and this, and it'll have the resources because I'll add a couple of them too. And I know Kasha, you said the book I recommended. Yes, it's all of those are on that as well. And if you all, I mean, I'm guessing that something I can actually put on those. If I don't do it till tomorrow, I'll put on a couple of those lubrications I mentioned, and even a couple of those moisturizing creams. Anything else? Yeah, comment on Jova is actually from, so Anna Kabeka is one of those slides that I had where estrogen was like going like that. And she is a really good resource for menopause. You know, she's very much into a ketogenic diet, which I'm just gonna honestly, everybody's different. And so I recommend that people have a little bit more targeted help before you go to something extreme. But I get the concept. The concept is trying to decrease inflammation in your body. But her cream, I've heard good things about. I know it's expensive. It comes highly recommended in my circles. So it is a good one. I would try that one. Okay, a friend of mine just had a hysterectomy due to a fibroid pressing on her kidney. It sounds like an evaluation with you might be a good way to aid her abrupt transitions into menopause. Yes. And it's like, why isn't that normal? Why does that have to be something that a friend sees a webinar? I mean, it, she just had her uterus taken out. Like, one, that's a huge abdominal surgery. And two, that's a huge abrupt transition. And so to not have the support, it's, you know, I'm gonna get all pissed off. But yeah, it's like, of course, you need, you know, there should be coaches. They should have like menopause doulas and surgical doulas. You know, I mean, talk about the same thing happens when women have a mastectomy and various forms of cancer. Like, you just need more help. That's what I would say. Does anybody have any questions about any other changes? Feel free to unmute yourself too. Okay, is the estrogen therapy mostly for vaginal comfort or is it mood affecting? Primarily it's tissues, but definitely there are centralized effects. So if it would depend on how sensitive you are to it. But really, when I'm using it with somebody and their tissues are dry and maybe sex is still painful, and that's a problem. Dryness is an issue, and especially too when there's prolapse and leakage. That's one of the first things I recommend, is that you talk to your doctor about estrogen therapy, because it just makes the vagina young and it'll hold things up better and the tissue's better and there's more blood flow. And so it's just, yeah, I think it's very protective as well. Heart protective, bone protective. So there are some central effects, but mood is so complicated that there's so many aspects that go into mood. I wouldn't say there's a direct cause and effect there. I hear somebody unmuted. Did someone have a question?
Yeah, I did. I was wondering if you could comment if you know of any program for the vaginal health workout, because as you're saying, our muscles are changing and things are getting lax and things are moving. So that was one question. And the second was, could you expand a little bit more on your knowledge about hot flashes and how to I mean, my understanding is that hot flashes occur because we're out of balance. And if you're in more balance, you tend to have fewer hot flashes. And so apparently it's a bit late to get into balance, but could you?
No, it's not too late to get into balance, but
or it's a rocky road, or, there's certain extra challenges erratic to try to, right.
So I would say the major aspect, let's start hot flashes first. Hold on, talking. Okay, so hot flashes is all about homeostasis. So it's the thermoregulation. So there's like think of it as a window of regulation where we feel hot and cold, and it's cold and our body warms up and warm. So, there's like, we're that homeostasis where there's a window of regulation. And when we're younger, it's a wider window. So it has to be extremes to affect us more. Well, it shrinks during menopause, and with the erratic changes, you can really go quickly out of that zone, and all of a sudden, and that's when you have a hot flash. So you're not going to change some aspects of that, but what you can change is your homeostasis, and really that's your nervous system and sleep. There are some hormonal pieces to that, but I would go with, do you exercise? Do you sleep well? Do you do things that you love? So all the things that actually make you feel calm and your nervous system is in better balance. And Kasha, heart rate variability might be an interesting thing to look at too, because it's a more direct sign. Like sometimes when you just think stress is such a hard thing to think, like, am I stressed? Am I not? And like, when's the point, in a pandemic world that I'm going to like chill out? Well, and if that's not that easy of a goal, looking at a more direct cause and effect, like heart rate variability, it might be a better feedback loop for you to think like, oh yeah, that, I see how that affected me. And so then you start doing the more things that you see affect your system positively. And, then you really think, oh, I didn't think that glass of wine really affected me, but look at my heart rate variability the next day. Like, yeah, it really affects me a lot more than I think. So then what if I take those things out? So I would say yes, so that's for hot flashes. And then the vaginal exercises, there's a lot of programs out there. And I think when you think of pelvic floor exercises, there's a lot of like sticking things up there and holding onto them. And although those things can help sometimes, what I find 9 out of 10 times is that actually people's women's muscles are tight, and so that can actually be contributing to pain and bladder symptoms. And so I really think that you should see a pelvic floor therapist and make sure that your muscles are up and down, and that you can squeeze your muscles and you're doing it correctly. A lot of people squeeze their butt and their thighs, and then we have some programs that we work with. Once your pelvic floor is moving up and down, and then you build up, and then you find where your hips are and how to use your rib cage. And so we have a lot of programs that are really like, this is where you start and you build up. Past that, some of those probe type of exercises where you are holding on and doing sort of more traditional Kegels can help. But yeah, so I would say it would be hard for me to recommend sort of carte blanche, like here, this program's great, because again, it's so individualized. So you really have to know what your body's doing. Okay, so am I correct in thinking hot flashes with alcohol and chocolate? It seems like I'm worse when I indulge in either. Yeah, that sucks, right? I think that, like, kind of actually what I just talked about is that's homeostasis. So even like an indulging in chocolate actually might make your nervous system work harder. So you're thrown out of that thermode zone much quicker. Yeah, it's just like you really have to think like, hey, what if I took out these things for a month, or how, does that change things? Do I see a difference in hot flashes? Do I, are there positive changes? And I would say you have to look at things in trends more so over, months than like, oh, I had chocolate and then this happened and then I had it again and it didn't happen, because that's the problem with it being so erratic. It might be a different result each time. So. Anybody else? Any questions? Body, brain, vagina? I mean, there's so much involved in menopause. I just basically did a very healthy summary overview. I have a Facebook group called the Healthy Menopause Collective, and I interview experts. I actually interviewed Karen Litos, who is a physical therapist who specializes in sex and menopause. And that interview is about 30 minutes long. It's all about what happens specifically to your vaginal tissues. And she talks about toys and vibrators and lubrications. And so I plan to host many more experts like that, and to go into specific details, because we could do a whole night on just insulin sensitivity and nutrition, or just heart health and all of that. So so in what ways do I address libido? So libido, basically, you want to think all those things we just talked about, right? So homeostasis, like your brain, your body, like what can you do to make yourself the best possible? But then about 1 in 10 women will have some issues with testosterone. And so testosterone supplements can help, or progesterone, DHEA, and estrogen also can affect your libido. So that is when I would recommend a functional medicine doctor to really look at the specifics of your symptoms when they're happening, so that they can like parcel out which hormone therapy would be the best. And unfortunately, it's a little bit of the Wild West out there for women, because since we've only really been studied since the 90s, and there's new treatments and they don't have long-term data, and it's hard to study women whose cycles are erratic, you really kind of like, everybody's their own study. So you kind of try something, and if it doesn't work, you move on to the next. Can you do telehealth appointments for education if someone lives far away? Yes, the only caveat to that is that I can only do physical therapy in 2 states, but I can coach and consult, which is a pretty liberal window in any state. So the answer is yes to that. But you know, if you're interested in that, we could go over some of the details. Okay, the last link to the Facebook group. All right, well, I'll add that to the resource page so they can have the specific links to all the right groups. What I wanted to also offer anybody in this group is that if you wanted a 30-minute, I mean, you could come to the clinic if you're around, but telehealth I think would suffice. For $47, I'm going to offer to this group just a menopause consult. So what that would be is we would go over, you know, I'd send you some screening tools, from heart to osteoporosis to all the, you know, basically everything I went over today, screening tools, and we would go over and I could help you like make a plan. You know, do you need to come see a pelvic floor therapist? Should you go to a functional doctor? Do you need to see a cardiologist, dermatologist? Like what's the plan for you? And I can help navigate that for you. You know, and then if you had some more specific questions for me for pelvis or strength and exercise and which programs are good, and if what you're doing is good right now, I'd be happy to do that. So I actually don't even know how many people are on here, but yeah, there's quite a few. So I will, the best way, honestly, I mean, you can feel free to message me in the chat or respond to the survey information that you're going to get to tomorrow, that you can respond to that. But if you're interested in a private conversation and we can talk specifically about what you need, I can do basically like a little coaching session and just say, hey, what do you need? And here's in the area or your area, like who's best to go to, and what should be the game plan. I can help you do that. So I will send you the survey. If you fill it out, you'll be in the raffle, but on the survey also asks if you'd like one of these assessments. But there will be a couple different ways to say if you'd like that. So with that being said, does anyone have any other questions? All right, it has been wonderful having you all here. I hope this helped. And please, on the survey, if you are looking for certain pieces of information, I'm really just wondering what everybody needs. I have the resources and I have the information. So I'm happy to present it in any way that would be helpful. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night. And a beautiful week. Have a good one.